Hey y'all, and welcome to Politibrawl. My name is Brian, and Glenn Youngkin takes Jake Tapper to task, and he does more than that. He absolutely takes him to school during this live CNN clip. This is absolutely fantastic. But before we dive in, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors over at Colonial Metals Group. They quite literally have the cure to bite inflation and Harris economics, but more on that later. Now, let's dive in.
These purging programs, I'm not singling out Virginia's, but in general, purging programs are error-filled. And sometimes people who were not citizens, who have since gotten their citizenship, are mistakenly taken off the rolls. Sometimes it's just the same name. Sometimes the government just screws up. And so that's the reason for the 90-day period. Why not just honor that 90-day period?
Well, let me just first begin. It's anything but a purging program. It begins with someone identifying themselves as a non-citizen. And I guess I would posit back to you, do you think that non-citizens, when they've self-identified as a non-citizen, should stay on the voter roll and therefore be in a position to potentially vote in a presidential election?
I don't think any non-citizen should vote. How are they self-identifying? How does that happen?
They actually tick a box that says, I am a non-citizen, or they do not answer the question that they are a citizen, and therefore they self-identify that they are not a citizen in the United States of America. And this is why this is so out of bounds in my mind from the Justice Department. They fully understand this. They understand the process starts with a person self-identifying as a non-citizen, and then there is a match with that person's name on the voter rolls, and they are given not just one, but up to 3 times in order to try to cure it. And this is why I find this to be a very, very unreal moment that is stunning, that they filed this suit 25 days before a presidential election, when in fact this has been going on in accordance with our Constitution, the federal Constitution, and state law since 2006.
I guess the only thing I would say is, and I'm not here to represent the Justice Department, but 6,300 people is a lot. I don't know that every time everybody checks a box, they know what they're checking. I think a lot of people mess up when they check boxes. And there is this federal law of 90 days, and I just wonder, when you knew this was going on, did you not know that the law was you can't do this within 90 days of an election, or was it just it was just rolling and nobody even thought about it?
No, it actually doesn't contravene the federal law at all. And in fact, because it is done on an individualized basis, person by person, and because that person has in fact self-identified as a non-citizen, this is not subject to the 90-day blackout period, in my view, and in counsel's advice. And that is the inconsistency in what the Justice Department is asserting. It is individualized. It is not systematic. It is individualized. That a person by name says, I am not a citizen, and therefore I probably shouldn't be on the voter roll, but my name got there either by mistake or by purpose. But either way, we shouldn't allow people to be on the voter roll when they have identified as a non-citizen to be there. And I will reiterate yet again, there are multiple fail-safes in this system that has been used and has not been challenged literally for 18 years. We have paper ballots, we have counting machines, not voting machines. We have great ballot custody laws. We in fact monitor all the drop boxes 24/7. They're in secure places. And we make sure that we have really clean election rolls. And I think that's what a governor is supposed to do. And I'm compelled to abide by our law and the Constitution to do exactly that.
I see absolutely nothing wrong with what Glenn Youngkin just said. I mean, after all, there's a good reason that he's the first Republican governor in a while in the state of Virginia, and he's got his eyes on the White House in 2028, so he's a name to consider and a name to remember. Not only is he a good governor, he is complying exactly with what the law states. And there's a reason why we do these voter purges. For instance, I was in Georgia at the time of Senate Bill 202, I believe it was. And this Senate bill was an attempt to basically reform and make sure that no one is abusing the voter system in the state of Georgia. I believe the Commonwealth of Virginia had something very similar on their books. But even before all that, and even before that legislation, before I dive in, remember, if it's possible that the government can screw up a voter purge, as CNN is trying to frame it here, Jake Tapper's really trying to lean into this, and when you lean into a punch, you're still gonna get smacked. And that's exactly what happened. Because if a government can screw up some voter purges, which it has and it can do, then it's equally believable and perhaps more believable that a government can have, some fraud in its ballots. Just saying. You think that it cuts both ways. Apparently it doesn't on CNN, because if it did, they wouldn't be airing the story at all. Hey y'all, I'm not exactly looking at retirement anytime soon. But my parents are, and friends of my parents are, and I'm sure either you or someone you know is looking at retirement and wondering, what do I do? How do I help prepare for this in this economy with this terrible president and with a vice president who basically coup d'etat him and is now looking to run for president herself? How do you protect against this? Well, simple. You go over to my friends at Colonial Metals Group. They quite literally have something called the Retirement Package Plan. This plan backs your wealth with gold and silver accounts. And furthermore, you will have direct access to these accounts. So you're not at the whims of Wall Street. You're not at the whims of inflation. You are in command of your own destiny. As a bonus, qualified applicants can receive up to $10,000 in free silver, plus a couple of other little goodies that they're going to package up for you, and you're going to be able to protect your wealth and your retirement. So go over to this link in the description below at colonialmetalsgroup.com or call this number 800-203-0422 and see how they can help you prepare for retirement today by backing your account with gold and silver. Don't delay your retirement, folks. Protect the money that you earned with Colonial Metals Group. They're here to help. Or at least they think that it doesn't, so they're going to naturally leave out that portion. They're going to leave out that whole Time magazine article where a whole bunch of people got together and tried to influence a certain 2020 election. But you know what? This isn't the space for that right now. Because we're focusing on 2024, we're focusing on the here and now. And what is happening here and now actually takes place in the past. And I'm a little too young to remember what happened in the 2000 election, but I've had the privilege of studying it. And if y'all have remembered, you would have known the term hanging chads. Because in the Florida election, I believe in Broward County, I believe it was, down in Miami, which is known for its voter fraud and just terrible voting system, because it's been run by Democrats for so long. Finally, a Republican mayor started cleaning up Miami, and things have never been better. Funny how that happens. But during the 2000 election, there was some issues with how votes were cast, particularly in Broward County. And because Al Gore kind of screwed up a lawsuit, it went all the way to the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court finally said, screw it, we're throwing out these votes. And then, in response, Congress then tried to delegate who could and could not be allowed on voter rolls because there was a legitimate problem with the system. It's almost with government that they're not proactive, but they're reactive, which is typically a good thing until a problem rears its ugly head. And it did in 2000, and it did again in 2020. And thus, there were voting laws that came in and tried to reform and make sure that these voter rolls and the voter registration process was strict and rigid. As a matter of fact, it's been so hard for Democrats to rig elections now that even Stacey Abrams' organization had to quietly settle out of court a whole bunch of lawsuits for illegally getting people to the polls and registering them incorrectly. Man, that'll never get old. Those are two good governors, by the way, Glenn Youngkin and Brian Kemp. And of course, Ron DeSantis is doing a fantastic job down in Florida. The GOP has a strong bench, and they have a strong bench of competent governors who are doing exactly what they're supposed to be doing. And instead of saying, you know what, y'all have a point, good for you, CNN tried to take one of their talking points, tried to take Glenn Youngkin, and try to put him between a rock and a hard place. And it failed miserably. Not because Jake Tapper's bad at his job. No, if he was bad at his job, he would have been booted like Don Lemon. No, Jake Tapper is actually pretty good at giving basic reporting, but when he's trying to trap someone like Glenn Youngkin, he's clearly outmatched. And I guess that's really the entire tale of CNN. And I am here for it. Just watching Republicans smack CNN hosts around with the basic truth and what policy actually looks like is great until you remember that CNN is there for rich white liberals to feel good about themselves. So the rich white liberals that he's reaching out to, unfortunately, Glenn, you're not reaching any of them because they're going to take the truth and they're going to reject it. That's sad, but it's the truth. Folks, my name is Brian. Hope you enjoyed that segment here on Politibrawl. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Catch you on the next one. And until then, y'all have a good one.